Good morning, guys. Welcome back to another episode of the Ground Pounder series. I'm Blackie, and I did several of these videos in a row, and then I kind of got away from onto other projects. Now I'm going to come back and do a couple on this. One of the things that I was asked to show what I carried, as I alluded to in earlier videos back in the day when I first started out, when I was doing so heavily everything military surplus. So that's what I'm going to be doing in this one. Now, first off, the time period we're talking about is 1975, 6, 7, 8, 9, in that time period. I was wearing this very U.S. Army jungle fatigue shirt, and you can tell that as faded as it is, this was the shirt I was wearing back in them days. And the rig I was carrying was something like this. This is the actual butt pack, the actual canteen, actual M14 pouch I had back then. Yes, Blackie hangs on to gear a long time. So, I'm going to set up a typical ground pounding camp that I did back in that day and share this information to you. Alright, the first thing that I looked at whenever I came out here is I'm going to be carrying my set like this. It's on a strap, and it's going to ride actually on my butt like that. It's basically like a haversack, but it's riding back there. Now this thing you see in the small of my back, that's a U.S. Army poncho. That's going to be my shelter. And then you've got the packing gear. We'll break out the stuff out of gear and talk about it as we do. But this was the typical way I carried it, sitting on my butt that way, with the strap holding the weight. It's not on a belt, it's just on a strap. And it carried very comfortably. My canteen is to the front, so I could easily reach it, be able to pop it, pull it out, take a swig, and put it back while still wearing it. Whenever your canteen cover doesn't wad up on you like that. Just like that. I can take it out and put it back. So, let's start out. Camp, what am I looking for? I'm looking for a pretty good sized tree with a mound of dirt at the base of it. Which is like you see here. This will be a natural upsweep and kind of act like a little bit like a pillow base to me. It's something to elevate my head and keep it being low to the ground. Of course, you look up for Widowmaker, stuff like that, and all the 5 W's I go ahead and check. Now, let's start setting up camp. Okay, what we have here is a U.S. Army butt pack, a U.S. Army canteen cover, canteen cup, canteen stove, and canteen with the NBC neck on it, the NBC cap on it, I should say. Stick that under my knee. On the very bottom, we've got our sleeping bag. I'll deal with that in a second. On this side, you have a U.S. Army M14 pouch that is my fire kit. And on the front of that, we have a U.S. Army compass pouch that's carrying small arms ammunition that I would be using. I carried a shotgun all the time back in those days. And then the poncho. So, first off, we're going to kick out any leaves. We're going to kick out any sticks that might get in our way. We're going to dig out our ridge line. You have the extension that comes up the top of the butt pack, and then inside there's one of the pack liners to make sure everything there stays dry. We're going to start with our ridge line. Ridge line, food, which is going to be rice and barbecue. Our tent stakes, spoon, and for a leaf tick, we're going to be using one of those large construction bags. Now back in the day I didn't use this. I actually had a thin muslin bag that I used for a leaf tick. And of course, the poncho. Easy to just take the strap loose. It's a bushcraft zip tie, and then it's just wrapped around the actual strap. That keeps it tight and compact, and add a little bit of padding and kept it off your back a little bit. One U.S. Army poncho. Alright, ridgeline and poncho time. Okay, I've staked out, I put up my ridge line, and I have staked it, my tarp out, but I have not made it a nice even A. I have actually missed the grommet, and I've made one side short and one side long. This will give me my best coverage for me getting in and out easily, plus having some rain protection and having an opportunity to catch some heat off the fire at night. Now if you'll notice, I pulled my hood closed and then used a stick where I put a loop over it to anchor to it, wrapped around the stick and pulled it out to a stake. This lifts up the roof and gives me a whole lot more head space inside. When we step over to this side, you see I've got plenty of room to get in and out. My peak is right up here. My four corners are pulled out at a 45-degree angle to make sure they're pulled tight. I'm up here close to the tree to utilize that up sweep of the dirt to act kind of like a pillow. Elevate my head, make it easier to sleep. I've got plenty of room to get in and out, and this will be fairly decent rain protection. I will not be getting a lot of rain protection from the tree because water would hit the tree and run down. So I want to be in fairly dense cover whenever I do this. Alright, the next thing is I'm going to take my bag and I carry inside of it a smaller trash bag. We'll deal with that in a minute. And now I'm going to take this and I'm going to kick up leaves and debris. I'm going to make my leaf tick to go inside of it. Be right back. Okay, now I've created a leaf tick and put in here. And now for the sleeping accommodations. On the bottom of my butt pack, I'm carrying a U.S. Army sleeping bag cover. Now what that's going to give me is it's going to give me kind of like a thin little light sleeping bag. This is the actual cover that goes onto a U.S. Army sleeping bag. It's the size of it with the features of it, but it's just a bag. And the advantage to this is when I unbutton it, and it's got buttons down the front, see, it forms a bucket that whenever I put my head up here, please, that's rough on the old knees. Put my feet into it, I have less bugs on me. Just like this. Now, this bag is not stuffed nearly as tight as I normally would, but this is for demonstration purposes. But it would give me a waterproof barrier between me and the ground, and you see how the ground rolls up. Well, now I take the butt pack gear, and that becomes the pillow. I have shelter over me. I've got a padding to insulate me and protect me. And getting into this sleeping bag at night, I'll keep a lot less bugs off of me because they'll not be crawling on the ground and get onto me. I'm inside of that bag, so to speak. At the same time, it won't be too much for heat retention. And even though it's about 7:20 in the morning, It's 80 something degrees right now, and heat and humidity and index, it's like in the high 80s. Sweat's pouring off of me already. So yeah, this was the way I did it back in the day, but man, whew. And I did it this way. This was the light, easy way. This whole gear didn't weigh 11 pounds, 12 pounds tops. I really think more like 10 pounds. The poncho gave me good coverage as a tarp, plus it was rain gear. The real thin muslin bag I was using for a leaf tit like this, I could fill and dump, and so not have to carry a lot of gear with me. The sleeping bag liner, cover I should say, allowed me to have a bag I could get into and get some protection at night, but at the same time not be too much. Now, trying to get in with a kukri. Snap the snaps coming up. As you laid back. Voila. I can go all the way up. And over my head like this. As you can see, I'm kind of in a bucket. And so there was less bugs and stuff getting on me. Now in this section right here, I could put a sniper veil or something over me to help keep mosquitoes away from me. Or better yet, put a smudge pot right there, slowly burning, to keep a little bit of smoke going. My fire would be right in front of me. This would be quick and easy in the way to do it. And this sleeping bag cover, I had sprayed to make it waterproof. So that made it even better. That was in the days before we ever heard of a MS Sleep System BB cover, but I was using something similar to it back then. So as you can see, it's relatively low and easy to set up shelter. Relatively little gear. Now what was the little bitty small tall kitchen can bag for? That was for taking my kukri, which I carried on my hip. And yes, that's the same kukri basically. And I would come over here to the side of the fire and dig a hole. Once I got the hole, I would use this to go to the water source and get me about a gallon, like gallon and a half, something out of water. Somewhere I wasn't going to strain the bag and bust it, but you understand. And come back and set it in the hole. And I'd have a well right here to dip water out of, so I didn't have to go down yonder in the bottom to get it every time. Therefore, I could save my canteen water for my drinking water and use that water for my boiling water to make my rice and stuff like that. Now, the predominant meal that I carried back in them days was macaroni and cheese, Knorr instant soups, and rice, because we had all kinds of things that we could mix with rice. As you recall, for you old silver wolves out there, Castleberry had these small cans of things that go into a kid's lunchbox. It was the same size of a Vienna sausage can. And it was spaghetti, beef stew, Brunswick stew, chili, and something else. There's like 4 or 5 different flavors of that. And I would get those and create rice and then just dump them into the canteen cup and stir it up. Out here in front of me, especially when it was hot, I had a canteen and I had my canteen cup and stove, which was all I needed and what I still basically all I need. The butterfly handles do lock. You grab them at the bottom and they lock. I would then take, if I was wanting to just heat up like at Castleberry or whatever, I would take the stove and I would sit the stove down like this in front of me. And instead of putting the canteen on it, that's for when you got hot coals, I would set it sideways on one end and build a little fire inside of this ring. Now, as part of that, in my fire kit that I carry on the M14 pouch, the U.S. Army back then issued these troxetane tabs, which is basically a barbecue starter that you can still buy today, but it's not wrapped up in this nice aluminum foil sealed up package. But two of these, which is basically an S-bit stove tab, would heat up a canteen cup hot enough to make hot coffee, hot stew, whatever. Back in them days, I didn't carry a Bic lighter. I had a Zippo lighter, is what I carried. That and matches. So, with the canteen cup stove and rice and some sort of meat to add to it, I could bring one package of minute rice, you know, a measured amount in a small container. A lot of times I used a bottle with a cap on it, or I made up packets of aluminum foil that had pre-measured amounts of rice or macaroni and cheese noodles in it, and would then supplement it. So if you wanted chili mac, you did the macaroni and cheese, you didn't put the cheese in yet, you dumped in the can of Castleberry chili, stirred it up and heated it up, and sprinkled a little bit of that powdered sugar on, powdered cheese onto it, turned it into chili mac. If you wanted pizza, you used the chili, you used that, and then you took pilot bread crackers and crumbled them up. One of them up into it to kind of thicken it up, took some pre-sliced pepperoni and threw it in the cup, and then you'd take the pilot bread and you would smear the sauce on it and put the pepperoni and the little bit of chili meat on it, and that's what we had for pizzas and things like that. Lots of little things that we could cook in the field. So, without it being big or cumberly or clumsy, this is still a viable kit that you can camp if you don't mind ground pounding and don't mind sleeping on the ground. The leaf tick, fill this up real heavy and thick, which I didn't do this time, where it's about that thick, and then you get up there and lay down and compress it down. It's fairly comfortable and fairly long. I don't care about my feet so much, but from my butt to my head, that part, as long as it's cushioned a little bit, I'm happy, I'm fine. As far as the cooking requirements, canteen cup will handle it, and some simple heat and eat works just fine. This is literally, most of the components in here are the components I had in the 1970s and was doing this. The canteen cup cover and kit, I got the canteen later, it's a replacement canteen. And this is called the NBC cap on it. It was so you could hook to it and drink when you was wearing a gas mask in the Army back in the 70s and 80s. That's a replacement canteen. And of course, minute rice. And today, instead of that, Walmart has these packages of pulled pork, so I can make barbecue and rice. Add a spoon, and that's all I need to get through a night. It isn't going to be glorious. It isn't going to be, you know, 5-star, but it'll be comfortable and you'll be all right. A fire would be out here about where the camera is, a few feet in front of me. Enough to give me light, but not give me so much heat. Whichever the north side, whichever the side that had the breeze coming, I'd get up here and I'd build me a smoke pot. Just some punk wood smoldering and some coals, taking coals from a fire and going into a little hole and putting on top of it to run mosquitoes away. So that smoke would drift over and through my shelter and help keep mosquitoes out. And like I said, getting into my improvised sleeping bag, which is just a cover for a U.S. Army sleeping bag of the day, as a bivy sack, I could avoid a lot of bugs and stuff like that. That's how I did it back in the day. Hope you've enjoyed this, guys. If you have, please hit that like, share button before you go. And there will be more videos coming in the Ground Pounder series. Till next time, guys, I'm Blackie, wishing you safe journeys. Have a great day, guys.